give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is gonna go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What's going on, NBA draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Wall Street, your favorite draft analyst. My name is Corey Teleba. I am here, as always, with my co-host, Albert. Garbage time, Gim, for our last episode of the NBA Draft Show on the No Ceilings NBA podcast feed for the 2024 NBA Draft cycle. Not to say that there won't be more episodes coming on this feed, just that, Albert and I's day of the show. This is our last episode because the draft is next week, man. The draft's next week. Albert, how we doing?
First off, I'm trying to process everything that you just said. It's unbelievable. Just thinking about the fact that, Corey, I think there was a point where both of us, we were kind of like, we were hitting a little bit of draft fatigue. And we're like, damn, just kind of wish this draft came already. And then now here we are. We're almost there. And this is our last part of the cycle. So it's unbelievable. And it's a big day. We dropped our draft guide today, which is great. Not so great for me and you, but the Boston Celtics won the NBA championship last night. So good for them. Good for Tyler Rucker. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this. We have a really interesting exercise planned for today that I think is actually going to be really important for us to do, Corey, because it's going to be different. It's not going to be the run-of-the-mill type of thing where we're just doing what everyone else is doing. And, at the same time, we're not necessarily just doing it just to be different, but it's good to mix things up sometimes. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for us to do this, and it's time.
It is. You touched on it. We do have officially available to the public the 2024 No Ceilings NBA Draft Guide. It is, I think, pretty awesome. It's 18,000 words. There are advanced analytics for each prospect, courtesy of our friends at Synergy. Pros and cons, prospect chemistry for each player. It's awesome. We really went in depth. The whole team crushed it. So it's $12. So if you feel like supporting us monetarily, that rocks, and you can head to noceilingsnba.com. You can find the link to our web store. We also have merch there as well. If you don't feel like supporting us, apparently somebody posted a bunch of it on Reddit. So, sometimes it pays to steal. But as you said, Albert, we are going to do a very, very, very fun exercise here. And we did this a couple of years ago when everybody kind of had the idea that Jabari Smith was going to be the number one pick. And I think that we felt like it just didn't pass, the smell test. It just seemed off, given that so clearly it felt like Paolo and Chet were the right answer, depending on whichever one you felt like. So we wanted to do this exercise, and it turns out our chaos mock draft ended up, I think, at least in the top 10 was pretty accurate to how the draft had actually played out. So this draft is a little bit more chaotic, I think, because we truly don't even know who is going to be available at the top. But the way this is going to work is we're just not going to be making necessarily the consensus picks. So you've seen Alex Sarr, you've seen Zachary Richichet, come at the top two spots. But the draft is crazy, and you never know what's going to happen. You're starting to hear, well, maybe the Hawks aren't in on Sarr. Maybe it's somebody else, right? At Richichet, I feel like, amongst some people you talk to, there are some concerns that, maybe some media outlets don't necessarily have. So we're going to have some fun today. And this exercise, I think, is just fun because it's something different, but also maybe, there's something to be learned from, trying to think of other options for these teams as well. So we're going to hit our friends at Fanspo. I am going to be on the clock for the Atlanta Hawks. And when we say it's a chaos mock draft, we're not going to be crazy. We're not drafting Keyshawn George at number 1 here. Everything is going to be within reason. So I'm going to get started. Quick shout out, Ty Knowles, just purchased a draft guide. Appreciate all the content, guys. We appreciate all of you guys listening, watching, reading every single day. Without the community that we build at No Ceilings, literally none of this is possible. You guys are what makes this happen. You're what allows us to keep going. So with that said, the Atlanta Hawks are on the clock, and I am going to take Donovan Clingan.
Good.
I'm going to take Donovan Clingan for the Atlanta Hawks. So, they still get a big man here. It's not Alex Sarr. I feel like the Atlanta Hawks are in a unique position. But first, Donovan Clingan is my number one prospect personally.
Sure.
On my board. It's more of a 1A, 1B situation with Reed Sheppard, but he's the number one guy for me. He's won at every level, multiple times at the college level. The advanced stats are crazy. He is much less raw than a guy like Alex Sarr is. Alex Sarr is a phenomenal defender, but his offense is pretty far away. And if you're Atlanta, you probably don't necessarily have the timeline to be super patient because you do have this Trae Young situation looming. Now, maybe, in the rest of the offseason, we see they go a completely different direction. And they, tear it down. I don't know. Maybe they make a trade with San Antonio, they get the draft capital back, and this all makes sense. I think that Donovan Clingan, good roll man, sets awesome screens, can pass, right? If the shot ever comes around, great. If not, he's still going to be awesome. Super impactful, helps the defense, and a winner. So part of, I think that they need a little bit of culture as well in there. So I think Donovan Clingan is not super chaotic, but he'd also be a surprise, I think, to most teams on draft night.
I think, Corey, first off, I have a lot of things to say. First off, love the pick, right? Because I feel like in every lotto preview piece I've been writing recently, I've been talking so much about Clingan and the type of player that, and it's funny, heading into the season, Corey, and even like midway through the season, I was really skeptical of Clingan. I think it's important to remember he came into the season with an injury to his foot, and then in January or December, he hurt his right foot as well. And so, him being a 7'3" center with multiple foot injuries, I had concerns, but as the season progressed and he played in the tournament this year, he was unbelievable in the tournament. And, last year people would say he played well, but limited minutes. Well, this year he came back and he was the main guy. He was their starting center. He played a big chunk of the minutes and he was fantastic in the tournament and leading UConn to back-to-back championships. So I felt like, I've really moved on Clingan as well. So I love that pick. But I did want to ask something. You mentioned earlier, you have Clingan and Reed Sheppard 1A, 1B type of situation. Yes. I wanted to kind of hear your reasoning in terms of how you're kind of splitting hairs and how you ended up with Clingan slightly above Reed.
I think I feel more comfortable with Clingan's measurements.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a big believer in Reed, obviously.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that's like, Reed is 6'2", 6'3". Yeah. And I personally think he's a better athlete than he gets credit for. I think, he has a great first step. I think he's got a go-to offensive move. I compared him on the internet to Lonzo Ball meets Klay Thompson meets Mini-Me. And I feel that. But at the same time, I think as insane as his defensive stats were, deep in a playoff run, and that's what you're hoping to get with these top guys, specifically them being able to play. I don't know. I think, I feel slightly more comfortable with Clingan just because of his defensive impact.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that he really showed some impressive passing chops, in my opinion. And if he does develop the jumper, I think he's Marc Gasol, and that is in any era an incredible player. But it's literally splitting hairs, and depending on the team, I can flip the other way and go with Reed. So in this situation in particular, when it's that close, I think Clingan makes more sense for what Atlanta's doing.
Got it. The reason why I asked is because I actually have them back to back on my latest board too. I actually tried to be earlier this time and submitted my board already for our final update. And where I'm at right now is I have Klingon at 2 and Shepard at 3. And I had a lot of trouble kind of moving those two around, and I was like, I don't know what to do, but ultimately I kind of came to the same conclusion. My thing was Klingon is going to be such an anomaly with his size, just being 7'3" and that large and long and strong and all those things, and the type of screen setter that he was. And then, of course, we've talked ad nauseum at this point about his offensive outlook too, right? With him maybe not guaranteed, and I don't think either one of us are projecting it either, but I think there is a world where he could become maybe even a threat from outside, right? And it's something that he's been working on and he's been trying to showcase to NBA teams. And so my thing was, if he's going to have some sort of scary offensive outlook, and then obviously we've talked about the passing as well, and be as gigantic he is, I think that has to give him the slight edge over Reed, even though you and I are ridiculously high on Reed as well. So that's the only reason why I wanted to ask, because I wanted to kind of gauge what was kind of that deciding final factor for you.
Yeah, 100%. It's close, and I think the nuances are what separates those decisions at this part. So, okay, the Hawks take Donovan Klingon, which means that you are up on the clock for the Washington Wizards at pick 2.
So I'm actually going to tell you who I was really thinking about picking, but I kind of pumped the brakes on because I thought it was just a little bit too chaotic. And then it might, people might think that we're just like making a joke of all this. I seriously considered Devin Carter. And I want to tell you why, Corey, because initially when you and I talked about this, it was like, hey, just not the top guys, right? We said not Risa Shea, not Sar. So for me, I was like, okay, if we're not going top guys and I have the second pick in the draft, I want somebody who's going to influence my team, my organization, the spirit, the ethos, the culture, all of that. And I was like, give me Devin Carter, throw him on the Wizards and he'll fix everything, was kind of where my head was at. I just thought the type of energy that he has, the type of character that he is in terms of like how influential he is. We also have to remember just like the type of player that he is on the court, with all the ability that he has. He averaged 9 rebounds per game as a guard, improved a ton as a shooter from outside. But anyway, that was my initial thought to go with Devin Carter, but I thought it would be too crazy. I pumped the brakes, and where I landed was Reed Shepherd. So
Okay.
The pick with Reed Shepherd's not complicated, right? This Wizards team, what are they looking for? They're looking for competence. I think they're looking for players that have a clear skill set. With Reed Shepherd, it's pretty clear what he's going to be good at from day one, and that's shooting the ball. I actually really enjoyed everything that Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons talked about this Sunday on their Sunday pod when they were talking about Reed, because Corey, I feel like you and I, we've been singing his praises almost all season long, or, I don't remember when we started talking about him, but the thing with Reed is that he's not a one-trick pony. Of course, like the highlight is going to be, look at all his shooting numbers, right? Just on a sheet, right? But you turn on the film and he can do it all. He can really shoot it from outside, off the catch. I love how Russillo put it. He was like, if he's shooting it from the catch, it's going in. Like it's over. Like there's nothing.
It feels like it's
even
going
look
in every
at.
time.
Exactly. But he also showed his ability to shoot off the dribble. He's a guy that I think you and I, when we did his film breakdown, we were like, I think he can be a lead guard type of guy one day. Like he actually has a skill set where he is good with the ball. He's good in pick and roll action. He can be a really high end decision maker. So ultimately my thing with Reed was, and this Wizards roster was, you want a guy who is really good at something, but also has the ceiling to become even better. And so I understand the size concerns with Reed, but like we've talked about, Corey, the defensive playmaking with him is really fun. And of course, that's going to regress. It won't be as crazy as it was in college, but he tested really well at the combine with his athleticism. I think that's really important. He played in a system with a bunch of other guards that had the ball in their hands, but he was able to fit in. But also when he had the ball in his hands, he was able to show off what he could do as well. Just seeing, and I don't want to give him all the credit for it, but I really enjoyed the way that Rob Dillingham played with him. And I think that was kind of like a give and take on both ends, how both guys influenced each other. So ultimately for me and the Wizards, if I wasn't going Risa Shea or Alex R, I was like, give me Reed Shepherd. I think he's a guy that could lead this offense one day and play alongside guys like Koulibaly and whoever else they end up keeping around.
I love it. I mean, Reed and Koulibaly, I think they'd be the two guys who I would consider future pieces. I love
Right.
Denny. I think he's incredible. His improvement, seeing that has been incredible to watch. I like Kispert. Like I like some of the pieces. Right. Kuzma is a good basketball player who shouldn't be on that team, but could be useful somewhere else. Jordan Poole, like we've seen him in a championship context. Like, you know, he obviously had a tough couple of years, but like in the right situation, I think he can be a impactful player. But the way I view the Wizards is this thing is the Koulibaly right now is the only guy on the roster I really care about. Adding Reed Shepherd to him. I mean, what's not to love about a guy who shoots 50% from three and just like breaks the analytics? Again, picture him with a sleeve too, and like one of those burst fade haircuts the kids have, and you know, maybe you'll like him more. All right, so the Wizards take Reed Shepherd at number 2. Okay. Now I'm up at number 3 for the Houston Rockets, and I'm going to take Alex Sarr here. Okay. Because, you know, in this scenario, Sarr, I don't want to have Sarr tumble down the board. Mm-hmm. We want to keep this somewhat reasonable. And I think if Alex Sarr fell to 3 on draft night, that would feel fairly chaotic given how, you know, we have been speaking about him in the draft media space. And, you know, I kind of like Sarr's fit here. I mean, they clearly value athleticism, you know, like grabbing Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, right? Jabari, maybe not the best athlete, but certainly a good enough athlete. Şengün, outlier guy, right? And not somebody that, you know, they reached for all the way at the top of the draft. They got him in a value pick, in a great move. But Alex Sarr, I think, could play with either Jabari or he can play with Şengün. Now, I'm not certain that the shooting is real. You know, like he's not a good shooter. Free throw shooting is okay. But I think when he takes his time and is not forcing a bad shot, really impactful. And I thought he was phenomenal in the playoffs for Perth. So if you're going to get a guy who could potentially anchor that defense from the 5 spot in a way that Şengün and Jabari Smith can't, because Jabari is really kind of a pure 4 at this point, and you add that dynamic athleticism to the guys they already have, they certainly need to get some shooters on the floor in like a really, 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 really bad way. I think shooting is very important in the NBA if we've learned anything from the playoffs year after year. But I like the value play here for this young Rockets team, and they have so many pieces they can figure what fits and what doesn't and move those around going forward. So I think Alex Sarr here at 3 would be fairly chaotic.
I like the pick. I think it is chaotic. I think very, very, very few people would expect him to even be there at 3. So, but then again, we've seen crazier. So I've got no problem with the party. Yeah,
we've seen crazier. All right, Alex Sarr at number 3 to the Rockets, which means you are on the clock for the San Antonio Spurs.
This one, so I have like a list of names for this pick just because I didn't know how, you know, what direction you were going to go in. Sure. I want to start off by saying that I'm not going to take Zachary Risacher here, which adds to the chaos because, and I wrote about it in our Detroit Pistons lotto preview, and I was like, I don't think it's crazy that Risacher might be there at 5, although everyone's assuming he goes top 2, and I want to continue that trend here because I don't think it's impossible. I think it is possible. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take Risacher here. I guess the chaos pick would be someone little. We're not necessarily. See, this one's hard, right? Because if I don't go Risacher here, then everyone else kind of feels okay. Like it wouldn't be too much of a stretch. Like if I took Topic here, Topic wouldn't be a chaotic pick, or maybe it is because of injury.
And I mean, you've seen some of the, the drops on some of these mocks that have been coming out. So it could be.
Yeah, maybe I course correct then and say I think his injury isn't that chaotic. And if anything, I think taking him here at 4 makes sense for the Spurs, because what do we know about Topic, right? We know he's a really high level playmaker. We know that he essentially walks to the rim at will whenever he wants. And he's got areas of improvement, right? He's got to continue to work on the outside shot. I think he's got to continue to work on the in-between stuff, finishing at the rim, all that stuff, right? Strength too, I think, would be great if you continue to add strength. But I think it makes sense, right? Because if you're looking for, I mean, positional size, he's gigantic for a point guard, right? And, to have him next to Wemby, pick and roll partner, sounds pretty enticing for the Spurs. And considering the injury concerns, I do feel like it could be a little chaotic to some. So I'm going to go Nikola Topic at 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm still in on Topic. I mean, he's super young.
Same.
The knee injury is not super concerning for me if it's, a run-of-the-mill ACL tear. No doctor, but I feel like guys have been, recuperating from that pretty well over the last few years. So I mean, anybody fits with Wemby is the other thing that makes it hard to be super chaotic. But hey, Coach Timmy, I don't know if you were here from the beginning of this thing, but this is called the Chaos Mock Draft. So this is not your standard run-of-the-mill mock draft. We see some people who are jumping in here in the comments and didn't read the title on the screen. So that's why we're trying to think outside the box here. And I don't know if you've ever watched the draft, Coach, but typically the draft is pretty chaotic. So all right, Coach Timmy doesn't like it, so we lost a sub.
Sorry,
it happens.
Coach.
It happens. We tried. All right. Nikola Topic, number 4. Number 5. All right. I am going to take Ricochet here to the Pistons.
There you go.
Would this be my choice with some of the guys on the board? No. But I think the Pistons here, I do think they need to find somebody who does shoot the ball.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% certain that Ricochet does. He shot it pretty well this year, obviously, but had some ups and downs. The free throw percentage is so he leaves a lot to be desired, but he is like a big 6'10". I think that playing, in some big games and playing and up to those moments was impressive. I really like his defense and his mobility, and I think he fits next to Cade. And honestly, that's kind of the only thing I care about right now. Like, I do love Asar Thompson. I do. And maybe, it's like a Asar Ricochet or kind of like swing wing 3-4 position. And then you find like your big elsewhere if you don't believe in Jalen Duren necessarily. But I do think that, you need to just have Cade in mind. You wrote about that, at NoCeilingsNBA.com for your piece covering the Pistons. So I'm going to take Ricochet here. He's a guy who's projected potentially to go number 1 on more than a few outlets. And he's going to fall to the Pistons here at 5. Perceived fall to the Pistons at 5, rather.
Fake fall. Not real fall.
Okay, so that means that at 6, you are the Charlotte Hornets, and you are on the clock.
Corey, before I get into my pick, can we do a recap of the top 5 just for our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. We can. At 1, we had Donovan Clingan to the Atlanta Hawks. At 2, we had Reed Shepherd to the Washington Wizards. At 3, we had Alex Sarr to the Houston Rockets. At 4, we had Nikola Topic to the San Antonio Spurs, and Zachary Ricochet at 5 to the Detroit Pistons. A lot of international prospects coming off the board here. 3 in a row. You're on the clock for the Charlotte Hornets at 6.
It's an international league. The NBA is becoming. Look at all the MVPs we've had in recent years. Tons of international guys running the league now. But this is where it ends here, at least in this draft at this point. The Charlotte Hornets, if this guy's on the board for them at 6, they won't be running to the podium. They will be whatever's faster than running. They will drive to the podium. in something, because the pick has to be Stephon Castle. And for me, the rationale is easy, right? As I said before, when I was talking about the Washington Wizards, I was like, they need a culture shifter. They need a professional. They need a guy to come in and just be good at something. I look at the Charlotte Hornets roster and I go, well, they're not necessarily at that point, because I think they brought in some great guys in the last couple of years, right? I think they hit an absolute home run with Brandon Miller last year, right? Home run with Mark Williams, huge influential piece of that team. I think things are kind of up in the air with LaMelo Ball. I think they're just hoping to get him back healthy is the biggest thing on their minds. And so with that in mind, I think about a guy who is going to come in to this roster, and this team won't be asked to do a ton of scoring, maybe not a ton of decision making even, but what he is really good at least to start, is defense. Stephon Castle is going to be an influential, impactful wing guard defender, right? He's got great size, 6'7". He showed in college that, number one, he can be a defender, guard the best guy on the other team every single night. He's shown that he can fit in and play a role. So on a team with a LaMelo Ball and a Brandon Miller and a Mark Williams, he can come in and fit in, right? But however, when you start thinking about long term and what his ceiling might be, well, Corey, when you and I did his pod, we were saying, should we think he could be a point guard type of situation, right? And I still believe he could be a guy that you can throw the ball into his hands and he can make decisions for you. Now, the exciting thing about this scenario for him would be that he wouldn't be asked to do that from day one. He can continue to grow into that. He can continue to work on his outside shot while playing a role next to LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, yada, 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 right? So for me, I think situation, fit, and player, this is the right pick in my mind. So I'd be very excited to see Stephon Castle go number 6 to the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, it's such a clean fit. It's just such a clean fit. It really is. Yeah. It would be an amazing direction for that team to take. Okay. Number 7, the Portland Trailblazers are on the clock. And for some people watching this is not going to seem super chaotic. But for anybody watching this who has listened to our podcast or read our work, you would know we're a little bit skeptical of this particular prospect. But the Blazers are a team that does like to take swings when they are in this part of the draft. And positionally, I think the fit could be a little clunky. They have some things to move around here. But if you can go forward with a team of Scoot Henderson and his shot comes around, Shaedon Sharpe, and Ron Holland, you have a pretty dynamically athletic 1, 2, 3 spot.
Wow.
And if Scoot commits himself to defense and Ron Holland is going to bring, what we've seen him bring at his highs on that end, I think that's interesting. And if you were looking for a guy who had a really rough year but showed flashes, a guy like Jaylen Brown, maybe you can see, who just won Finals MVP, maybe you can talk yourself that Ron Holland, as his top outcome, has that potential. Does that mean he's going to get there? No, it doesn't. And there's still, we didn't mention Anthony Simons, who I think they're very high on, who I think is friggin' awesome, but is going to get expensive soon. And I just think if we're talking some chaos here, from my perspective, the Trailblazers swinging on a talent, I think that would be chaotic in my mind. Probably not as much to some of the people watching this and listening to this.
I think, Corey, the chaos is rooted in where you and I stand on him, is where it is rooted in. And that's okay, right? And I've seen so much about people having Ron Holland at number 1, number 2 on their boards. And for me, I'm fine with it. Like I'm okay with disagreeing and being wrong
Yeah, sure.
even. I just think it's funny though, the other way though. Like if people see that we disagree, it's like we're out of our minds. And I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, look, and is there a chance that Ron Holland is just Corey Brewer?
Yes.
Yeah. Corey Brewer
Big
went
time.
7th.
Yeah.
He won Final Four Most Outstanding Player. He won multiple titles. So like that's an outcome that I think a lot of NBA players would be pretty happy with. And in this climate, that player would make $100+ million over their career. So that would be a pretty successful pick. So with the Blazers' first pick, they're going to swing on Ron Holland.
Sure.
And you're back on the clock at
Mhm.
number 8 for the Spurs again. You took Nikola Topic, who is sliding on boards.
Yeah.
Who are you going to pick at number
Corey,
8?
I'm going the same rationale with you. So I think it's hilarious that you made the case before me. This is a chaos pick for me because and I get it. And I'm not even going to make the claim that I think I'm right and everyone else is wrong. I simply make the evaluation based off of what I see, what I hear, what I believe. Manas Buzelis is not a guy that I'm overly excited about as a player. However, at the same time, I also believe that there is an outcome where he can become a really, really good player. And when we did our pod on him early on in the season, I think both of us kind of walked away encouraged and we're like, oh, I think I like this guy better than I thought. But then as the season progressed, I think I lost some of that enthusiasm about his game. And now on my final, actually, I won't talk about it here, but he isn't as high as everyone or the consensus has him, right? So for me, he has dropped a bit, but he's my chaos pick here for the Spurs because I think it's interesting if the Spurs walk away with Topic and Manas Buzelis. Buzelis, if we were to make the case for him, if he can figure out the shooting, and I think it's possible, right?
Sure.
He was a pretty good, decent shooter in high school, although, we could feel a lot of different ways about that. But in his one season for the G League, correct, his last year, right? His one season for the G League Ignite did not shoot it well. Really struggled with his shooting, but he's a 6'10" guy. He's huge. I think
Very athletic.
defensively,
Very athletic.
very athletic, right? Showed a lot of good flashes defensively. And so my thing with him is, and actually, I'm not a big believer in the shot making at all at this point. But here's the thing, right? Like things can change, and if Buzelis can tighten up the handle, work on the outside jumper, then you've got a 6'10" guy with some really interesting gifts and talents and ability. So as much as I'm lower on Buzelis than the consensus, I do still think there could be a really good player in there. And so if the Spurs were to walk away with Topic and Buzelis as their two guys, I think it's an interesting situation. Now, if you were to ask me, Albert, is this what you would do if you were in charge? My answer would probably be no. But I still like the idea, and I like the shot that you're taking if you take those two guys is where I landed.
Okay. I like it. I mean, I think Buzelis, some people look at him like Franz Wagner. I'm trying to look at him more like Jaden McDaniels.
Mhm.
A guy who also wasn't a great shooter, but showed a lot of like weak side shot blocking, some good movement skills, can play above the rim. He'll make shots every once in a while, right? Like he's capable of it. Sometimes you look at what he does and you're like, oh, that was nice. I wish it was more consistent, but it's not. But like he doesn't have to worry about that necessarily. He's not going to be, taking on as much usage as you maybe would have thought he was given his pedigree coming into the year. So I think he's an interesting fit there and a lot of size in that front court with him and Wemby. Okay. So I'm on the clock for Memphis. And I'm going to go a little more chaotic here than I think maybe we'd expect.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a guy that I've seen twice this year. This is his second year in college. He fits a position of need for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that this is a team that really struggled rebounding. Obviously, like they're a great defensive team. I think their backcourt is pretty set. I think that their wing position, they probably don't have anybody super in place. I think Jaren Jackson can play the 4 in the long term. But this is a guy who had a ton of hype coming into the year, a lot of potential, athletic, gigantic, maybe can shoot it. Had a bad reputation that he kind of rehabilitated this year. I'm going to take Kel'el Ware at number 9 for Memphis. 7'1". He's like a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan. I think he is somebody who like showed like the rebounding, some defensive flashes, some offensive flashes, but like also has like a pretty solid baseline. You know, like he's just like he's good at the big man stuff. And like if his head is on straight, he has a ton of potential. Like he was a top 10 guy going into last year. You know, like, so this year in this draft, if a team wants to swing on a guy while also maybe having a safe floor as far as talent goes, Kel'el Ware is pretty interesting.
You did it. You created the assignment. You understood the assignment, Corey. You nailed it. Perfect. I was actually going to give, you know what's crazy, Corey? Before I realized we didn't want to go too crazy, I actually had Ware going to the Spurs at 8, and I was going to do a whole thing about how wild that would be. So perfect. I love that pick for you. That's great.
Okay. So at number 10, you're on the clock for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah. This one is weird because it creates a wild just image on the floor. It's going to be a lot of white guys for the Utah Jazz, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going Dalton Connect here. Now,
okay.
My idea for this, and it's not that crazy even. Like I think if Dalton Connect goes 10, right, is what we're at 10, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If Connect goes at 10, no problem, right? That doesn't feel. Excuse me. It doesn't feel like the craziest pick, right? My thing with Connect is, this is where I'm at with him. I think he's just if Reed Shepherd wasn't in this class, I think Connect might be the best shooter in this class. I think he's an unbelievable shooter, both off the catch, off the dribble. He's got good size, tough, strong as hell, athletic. Is he going to give you a ton on defense? No. It's okay, though. We've got Walker Kessler back there. We're going to be all right, you know? And just imagine a front line of Walker Kessler, Larry Markkinen, and Dalton Connect. We're having fun. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be awesome. The Utah fans will love it. But just thinking, like, I think fit-wise, he makes sense next to, you know, Keyshawn George and Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, whatever, any of those guys. I think he can play next to all those guys just because he can shoot it off the catch. And then, you know, if you throw it to him, he could do stuff with the ball in his hands as well. So this isn't super chaotic, but I wanted it to happen. So I'm going Dalton here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dalton, it's pretty easy to make an argument for him going to any team outside of his age, right? Like you just make an argument that he just fits everywhere because of his offense skill set. So I like it. Okay. The Chicago Bulls are on the clock. Pick 11. There is one, there are a couple of, you know what? Okay. I'm going to do it. A lot of buzz about Devin Carter here, but I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
I'm not going to go there. If you look at how the Bulls have drafted over the years, Patrick Williams, Dalen Terry, Justin Lewis, Julian Phillips, they like raw swing fours. And, you know, there's one guy who's probably a little obvious to be the kind of swing four kind of guy. Yes. Also, Io DeSumo, probably probably their best pick.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with Tijan Salone
I
to the
knew it.
Chicago Bulls, who has not gotten any buzz there
Mhm.
to Chicago. I feel like, but man, do they like this kind of player in Chicago? And Salon is very raw, but he is a big boy who
Mhm.
plays really hard. And I think I speak for any Chicago Bulls fan out there. There is no direction to the team. So, you could have taken a win now player, but they keep saying they want to win and keep drafting raw players. So I feel like this just fits their MO.
Mm.
And if they want to rebuild, then they can, sign and trade DeRozan. They can trade Alex Caruso.
Mhm.
They can trade Zach LaVine. And then, you have a couple of guys who, like Kobe White's not going to win you games by himself. And yeah, as a Bulls fan, is this the direction I would go? No. But does it fit the Bulls front office MO? Yeah. Is it a little chaotic? Yeah, it's a little chaotic. So I'm going to go with Salon at 11 to the Chicago Bulls.
Cool. You did it. You continue to crush this. And it's time for me to finally start catching up. So
Okay. Number 12, Oklahoma City Thunder.
cool.
Let's see it.
If this wasn't a chaos mock, right, everyone would be like, Jalen Williams on the team, take his brother. Cool. That's an idea. You had an idea. Good for you. Pass. Or you can go like, Keyshawn George, 6'8", can shoot it from outside. Want more of those guys? Yeah, but pass. This is chaos mock. The pick here is easy for me. Something that I heard recently. I don't remember if it was Zach Lowe. It might have been Zach Lowe. Might have been Ryan Russillo. I don't know. I listened to some people. I don't remember. Can't differentiate sometimes. But they were saying how Sam Presti likes to do when the rest of the NBA is doing something, Sam Presti likes to pump the brakes and say, I'm going to do something a little different, right? And a lot of people look at this player and they go, he's slow. He's antiquated, not a modern NBA player. And to that, I say, you're wrong. I think Zach Edey is a pick here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. My rationale, it's not difficult, right? Everyone thinks too big, too slow, boring, has one move, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's start here. Oklahoma City Thunder, one of their biggest weaknesses this season was rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
They need a rebounder. They need someone to rebound the ball. He's going to do that, right? And I'm not saying play him next to Chet. I'm saying have him be Chet's backup. Have him come off the bench, offer you size, be a giant, right? The thing with him is he's such an anomaly in terms of size, length, and also productivity. He was ridiculously productive in college over multiple years, played in the national title game. Of course, I know the strategy was to let him score, and still he gave Donovan Clingan that work. So I think Zach Edey deserves way more credit as a guy who can play inside as an offensive player, but also defensively too. People say he's slow. He moves really well for a guy that is that gigantic. And I think you're kind of looking at it incorrectly if that's your only argument against him. Also, guys, remember, this is a chaos mock. And so for this chaos mock, I'm going Zach Edey at 12. And I think it's also hilarious that we still have people in the comments that don't really understand what we're doing here, but it is okay.
People are coming in late. They're coming in late.
Yeah. So Edey's my chaos pick here. I think it would be a lot of fun. And even if it were to happen in real life, I wouldn't be that disgusted by it. So
I mean, I love Zach Edey. I've seen him numerous times over the years. I think he's really good. I think he's really, really good. And I think pick and roll with him and SGA or him and Jalen would be like really, really tough to stop. I think that, I don't know if that's crazy or not. I just think it would be hard to stop guys who are good pick and roll ball handlers with a guy who sets massive screens like that and it's a giant lob target. What do I know? So I like it. Edey to the Thunder. Okay. At 13, Sacramento Kings are on the clock. I know what the easy answer would be like, oh, let's just take Dillingham. He'll replace Malik Monk. I'm going to go with a guy who I think is going to go earlier than this on draft night, but I think I haven't really seen him mocked here at all. So I'm going to go with Cody Williams here. I don't love the kind of like 3 depth for Sacramento. Harrison Barnes a little old, 3-4. Cody's gonna be a 3-4. I think Keegan, is mostly gonna be kind of guy you want to play at the 4. So I'm gonna go Cody here. I think he's slid, and I like him. I'm still pretty high on Cody Williams. I outside of the injury issues, which I think, getting hit in the face is not like, oh, he's injury prone now. Like, I don't know. I thought when he was like fully healthy, he showed some really nice stuff. Hate the rebounding being as low as it was, but what's great? You have Sabonis on your team, and he's an awesome rebounder. So I'm going to go Cody Williams at 13, even though, Devin Carter's still on the board. Rob Dillingham is still on the board. I'm going to go with Cody Williams.
Love it.
And that's going to put you on the clock for Portland at 14 to round out the lottery. They took Ron Holland with the 7th pick.
Chaos mock. My chaos mock pick from the University of Pittsburgh. Going Bub Carrington. Now,
let's
hear me
go.
out, guys. Look, I get it. This is a crazy pick. I understand they've got Scoot Henderson. I know they got Anthony Simons, blah, blah, blah. Even Malcolm Brogdon, right? They've got a bunch of guys on this team. But look, Shade and Sharp. I want the chaos. I want a guy who's going to come in and he's going to just be a wild child, a guy who is going to walk into the gym and he's going to look Scoot Henderson in the eye and tell him, I'm the captain now. I'm him, is what he's going to say. He's going to rip the ball out of Scoot Henderson's hands. He's going to throw it right back at him and say, check up, right? That's who Bub Carrington's going to be. And so in this chaos mock draft, right? And of course, I know this isn't going to happen, but the reason why I want to throw this out there, I think that's how highly, Corey, you and we view Bub, right? The thing with him is that he's a guy who we think can play both on and off, a guy who really was able to flash. If we talk about his on-ball ability, right? The shot making with him, the underrated playmaking with him. And then, obviously he's got to work on it, but I think he can become a reliable catch and shoot jump shooter as well. And so there's a realm of possibility where you see him, either backing up or maybe even playing next to a Scoot Henderson one day. He's got good size for his position too. He's 6'5", right? He might end up being 6'6", even 6'7". Who knows if he continues to grow? I don't know. He's the youngest domestic player in this class, so it's always a possibility. But before I go too crazy, I think it's the fun pick here. Now, I think they probably go, I don't know, maybe another big or another wing or whatever. Then this team is this roster is so weird. They have so much of so many different things, but I think the chaos pick of Bub here is a lot of fun. So I'm going Carrington.
I love it. He was awesome to speak to when we broke down film with him.
Yes.
Film session, Bub Carrington is available on the No Ceilings YouTube. I just love his skill set. I love for how raw he was, how polished he is. Great frame, looks slender, but only weighs a couple pounds less than a guy like Ron Holland. So I think he's got a good frame to put on weight. Look, why not take 2 swings, like 2 worthy swings, right? Like I think this would be a killer draft for Portland. The fit's not great. I don't know if they're in the part of their rebuild where they need to worry about fit. And what else are they going to do? Taking, another 4 that can't shoot or something? They don't need to do that. Let's get Carlins and Carrington in there. All right, let's go over the way that the lottery shook out on this chaos mock. At number 1, the Hawks took Donovan Clingan. At number 2, the Wizards took Reed Shepherd. At number 3, the Rockets took Alex Sarr. Number 4, the Spurs took Nikola Topic. At number 5, the Wizards took Zachary Richeche. At number 6, the Hornets took Stephen Castle. At number 7, the Blazers took Ron Holland. At 8, The Spurs took Ron Holland at 9. The Grizzlies took Kel'el Ware at number 10. The Jazz took Dalton Connect at 11. The Bulls took Tijan Salon at number 12. The OKC Thunder took Zach Edey at number 13. The Kings took Cody Williams. And at 14, the Portland Trail Blazers take Carlton Carrington. Bub.
Bob.
All right. I'm on the clock now at pick 15 for the Heat of Miami. And we have Rob Dillingham on the board. We have Devin Carter on the board.
Yeah.
Devin Carter. Has there ever been a guy more Heat culture than Devin Carter? The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm going to take neither of those guys. I'm going to go with Isaiah Collier at number 15 to the Miami Heat.
Okay. I love it.
I considered Rob Dillingham. Shooting, awesome, invaluable, right? All of that. I think if you look at Miami's roster, though, I think they prefer, some bigger guards. Guys who can kind of play some, maybe multiple positions and whatnot. Now, Collier, I think, is purely a guy who needs the ball in his hands right now. He's going to have to take outside shots.
Corey? I think this is me. I think we lost Corey there. Let's see. I think Corey's ultimate point with Collier, though, is the type of athlete that he is, type of agent of chaos. There it is. That he could. Well, do we have Corey back? Maybe.
Just talk.
There it is. There it is. There
Keep
it is.
going. If I'm cutting out, just keep going.
There it is. There it is. No, I thought we had you back. But yeah, I think, Corey, I think your point to Collier, yeah, this might be high to some, but also makes sense to a lot of other people, not us, right? But if you end up with Isaiah Collier in that system, playing with that coaching staff, that context, this might be when you get the best version of Isaiah Collier, the one where, that everyone else thinks he will end up being. So I love the pick. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Look, if you're going to go for an upside swing, physical tools, like maybe Spo and Pat and Jimmy, get the best out of them. Okay. That means that you are on the clock. Pick 16, the Philadelphia 76ers, who I believe have 3 players on their roster at this moment.
The Sixers one was tricky. And just because exactly what you said, they don't really have anyone signed. We do know they have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. So you can imagine that they're going to go and spend some money on some veterans to help fill out the roster. Obviously, during the NBA Finals, Joel Embiid hinted and made some sideways eyes towards Paul George, trying to recruit him on live TV. We don't know what this team's going to end up looking in terms of who they're going to go get. Obviously, there's talks about them targeting even like a Miles Bridges or bringing back a Kelly Oubre. Regardless of all that, I just want them to add an agent of chaos. I think he's fallen enough at this point. I think the type of energy that he has is incredible. A guy that you've seen play live, Corey. A guy that, even though he's coming in as a rookie, might even hold Joel Embiid accountable. And might even get in his face and be like, bro, you got to get your stuff together. You got to stay in shape. You got to be healthy, type of thing. So I'm going Devin Carter here. I think for both of us, we've talked about him at higher picks. I talked about him at 2 to Washington in this exercise. And my thing is, if you end up with Devin Carter on the Philadelphia Sixers and he's just a guy that you're adding to fill out this roster, that is incredible value. As we've already talked about, what he's going to offer on the defensive side of the ball, what he's going to offer with his rebounding, what he's, his growth as a shooter, his underrated playmaking. There's so much to like about this guy, and just his spirit is one of those things. So adding a guy of that ilk to this Sixers team that's pretty barren right now sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Good. I love Devin Carter so much. I love his fit with Tyrese Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you talk about like, you know, you want positional size in the backcourt, but like those two dudes are so long and so athletic and have such great motors that like it works. And you add that to potentially like Paul George, like, okay, Philly could be cooking something. I absolutely love Devin Carter there. I love him anywhere. All right. The Lakers are up. We're not going to get so chaotic that we take Bronny here. I want to just throw that out before I know everyone's thinking it. We're not that chaotic. I am going to stop the slide, though, for Rob Dillingham here.
Okay.
And agent of clutch, I am going to add another clutch guy to this Lakers team. I think that with AD, it allows him to, you know, have a little bit of feasibility to, even if he gets blown by, they have a freak defender to, you know, back him up, can play off the ball. If you need him to cook a little bit, he can, but this is a guy who's going to be an absolute sniper in the backcourt. So I think they just grab a guy who, yeah, he's never going to be a good defender, but he was never going to be a good defender before we found out that he was short with short arms. And to be completely frank, I think if you watched him, you'd be like, hey, this guy's short with short arms and he doesn't weigh a lot. So I don't really care what the combine said, but if you look at some of the mocks he's been dropping, I still think he'll go a little bit higher, but the Lakers get him in this exercise at 17. And that puts you up on the clock for the Orlando Magic at pick 18.
All right. So the Magic have Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz, Anthony Black, and they're going to add Jared McCain here. I don't know if all those guards are coming back is my first thing. And obviously that's me projecting, but I really think there's a world where one of those guys doesn't come back in some sort of trade. So want to throw that out there. But even if there isn't a trade, my thing is I think Jared McCain just will take the Gary Harris spot and it'll be fine. McCain is such a deadly outside shooter, a guy, just an unbelievable shooter, but just a really heady, smart, tough guy. I know he's another guy who's short with short arms, but he's tough. He's really, really strong. He's got great balance. I just feel like the shooting with him is the biggest win for Orlando, adding a guy that's going to be able to just absolutely stroke it from outside and has proven that, you know, he could do a little bit on the ball, but also play off of it. So can fit in against any of these guards that they have, is why I'm going with McCain here. And I know it's not a chaos pick per se, but I think it's the right one. And I think what pick is this? Are we at 16, right? I think at 16, like
18,
huh? Oh, 18. Sorry.
18.
At 18, I think he's fallen enough. So, and
Yeah.
I think we both think he can go higher. So McCain here.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely think he can go higher. He's short, but like everybody on Orlando is plus size. So like they can afford to, you know, and we've seen Cole Anthony, who's also short, succeed there. And Jared McCain's a better shooter. So Orlando would be an amazing fit for Jared McCain for sure. All right. With the 19th pick, I'm on the clock for the Toronto Raptors. And man, Raptors, tricky one. I like that Fanspo has Jonte Porter as their starting power forward. They haven't updated the depth chart. I mean, they like their length. They like their length. They like their 6'9" athletes. But I'm just going to take De Silva here. He's good. He can shoot from like every level.
Mm-hmm.
He can handle. I mean, if you want to put him in small forward, you want to put him in power forward, you know, he'll probably need to put on a little bit of weight, but like the dude is just a good basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
He should go higher than this in the real draft. But he absolutely rocks. You saw him live.
I did. And that's when I knew he's going to just be a fantastic NBA pro. So,
Yeah.
great pick.
All right. So, De Silva to the Raptors at 19. Albert, you're on the clock with the 20th pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
With the 20th pick, 2024 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Kyle Filipowski from Duke. I get it. Cavs have Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, got some big dudes. I just want to bring in someone to mix things up a little bit. Now, we've always hoped and prayed that Mobley would become an effective outside shooter. Just hasn't happened yet, right? Just hasn't. Filipowski, legit 7-footer, a guy who his jump shot didn't go in a ton this season, but mechanically, you look at it, looks fantastic. It looks great. Looks like it's going to go in a lot. So I like that. But also really tough guy who I think developed this year as an interior defender. Worked on his post game. We'll see. I think he's still raw, in my opinion, too. Like there's still a lot of room for him to grow, but just he's got some guard skills to him, dude, that I think make him really interesting. And I know that Mobley does too, but still, I think he's different enough for this chaos mock draft to be selected by them to be like a third center, or just a backup big, and he could come in and mix things up and be a little bit different. So, wanted to go Filipowski here.
Yeah, I still like Flip a lot. I think he's good, and I think his form is good enough that he's going to shoot it. I do. All right, 21. I'm on the clock for New Orleans, and New Orleans is a team that they kind of got guys everywhere. I mean, I guess they are in need of a center, a true center, because I think Valanciunas, if I'm not mistaken, is a free agent, and he could leave. I guess he's unrestricted if he wants. That is a possibility. Their backcourt, they don't have a ton of depth in the backcourt. Guess Brandon Ingram, Dyson Daniels and UConn's own Jordan Hawkins, CJ McCollum, he's aging out. They can go a number of different ways, man. I don't want to just give them a center just because. Man, tough one here.
Yeah.
Tough one here. I think I'm going to give them Deron Holmes.
Okay.
And 21. I think if you look at his stats, he's the kind of guy who he filled it up in such a way that every other guy who's kind of had his numbers has been like a lottery pick. And he's kind of a guy who's been in the 20s of a weak draft. Now, he played at Dayton, so competition level, but he played great against Arizona. If you want to put him with Zion, he can space the floor, right? He can protect the rim. He can guard on the perimeter. He can pass a little bit. He can play above the rim. He's always a big-time dunks guy. So he's just good. He's also like the absolute nicest guy possible. So I think he'd be a pretty good fit, whether he's coming off the bench or whether he's going to be a starter one day. He's gotten stronger. I like Deron.
Deron and Zion together sounds a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, could be really fun. Could be really fun. If he continues to shoot it, pair him with Trey Murphy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Hawkins, CJ, guys who can really space the floor. Could be interesting.
Sounds like modern NBA basketball to me. So
yeah. All right, you're on the clock for the Phoenix Suns at pick 22. I know we have some Phoenix Suns guys in the chat on YouTube who are anxious. Shout out to Suns Jam Session podcast in the chat. Anxious to see who they draft.
Yeah,
at number 22.
I think everyone has the Suns figuring out their point guard problem with Tyler Kolek. And that's just boring for the chaos draft. So there's no way in hell I'm going in that direction. I'm going to give them somebody who's going to give them something that they need desperately. I'm going Ryan Dunn. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. Hear me out. Just now you've got defense. Like, it's not even a thing. Like, it's figured out. Like, you now have a defender who isn't just a defender. He's an absolute fucking dog of a defender in Ryan Dunn, a guy that you can throw out on the court right now. He could have played in the NBA Finals last night with his defense, man, is what I believe with Ryan Dunn. What are you looking for? You're looking for blocks? He's got that. You're looking for steals? He's got that. You're looking for impact, versatility? He's got that. What do the Suns lack with their wing defense? All of the above. So give me Ryan Dunn with his defensive acumen, ability, talent. Throw him on the court with KD, Booker, Beal, Grayson Allen, whoever the hell you want to throw around him, and he's going to figure it out because he's going to be just an absolute nightmare defender for other teams, and he doesn't need the ball offensively. He'll get out the way, or he'll set screens. He'll be a pick and roll guy even for you. He's athletic enough. He's big enough. He can do all kinds of stuff. And so I understand everybody wants to fix the Suns and their point guard problem, but if you throw Ryan Dunn on this team, look out. Like, I actually think he could be an impact player from day one, is what I feel about Ryan Dunn on this Suns roster.
They have so many offensive options that it's kind of easy to just be like, hey man, just defend and just defend your ass off, make life hell. If you hit a shot, that would rock. But our scorers are so good that they have enough gravity as is. Dunk the ball, get out in transition. Just be a dog.
Yep.
I love it. I still like Ryan Dunn.
Me too.
I still like him. All right. At number 23, the Milwaukee Bucks are on the clock. And this team doesn't have a ton of good players at the moment. Depth is pretty rough. The depth is pretty rough. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take a guy who's a little older, who might seem like a little bit of a reach. I don't necessarily look at the talent on the board and say anybody's a sure thing. I know Jacoby Walter's still there. But I'm going to go with a guy who's a little older, and it might seem like a reach, but I'm going to take Baylor Shireman out of Creighton.
Nice.
I think he's a big dude who rebounds the hell out of the ball. He can pass the ball, space the floor. He's smart, in very underrated pick and roll guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I think Shireman's good, and I feel like the chaos factor here, it makes some sense. Maybe it's a little early, but Baylor Shireman to Milwaukee Bucks at 23.
Perfect. I mean, I'm upset as a Knicks fan just because I know they brought him in for a workout this week, and I think he would be a great Knicks selection. I love everything that you just said about him because it's true, and I just think he's one of the most criminally underrated guys in this class. I think he shot like 39% from three over 5 years in college, so pretty good.
Pretty good. Knicks are up. You're on the clock at number 24.
Yeah. This is a reach, but you guys can see the hat I'm wearing. I came ready for the mock. This is my team. I'm New York born and raised. My dad sold 2 of his car washes to Charles Oakley back in the day. True story. My dad had a ball signed by the whole 1994 Knicks team. I've got Knicks blood running through my veins. So I take this chaos mock very seriously. With that being said, at 24, I have the Knicks reaching for Justin Edwards here in the chaos mock.
Ooh, little pedigree, little 5-star pedigree here.
Exactly, Corey. You just made my entire point. It's pedigree, right? The Knicks infamously like to give their rookies time right? Tibbs isn't the guy looking to take his rookie and shove him into the rotation. He's a guy that wants to give them time, and it's kind of panned out in recent years. Look at the development of guys like Emmanuel Quickly, R.J. Barrett, Quentin Grimes, Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride especially took him 3 years to develop, played a ton in the G League, right? Justin Edwards was a guy that we had number 1 in our preseason big board, right? As a collective and no ceilings. A guy came in 5-star on McDonald's All-American, played at the Nike Hoop Summit, just ended up on a team in a situation that wasn't really tailor-made for him. And also he ended up not shooting the ball too well this season. But if you look at, kind of like conference play towards the end of the season, he started to heat up a little bit, had some really strong games there. And with Justin Edwards, the sell is simple, right? He's a guy who has great wing size, is known to be an outside shooter. I think he's going to figure it out. I just think he was in a bad situation. I think he's going to be a sweet jump shooter. I think defensively,
36.5%.
Exactly. And a rough season, right? So 36%.
Not bad.
Exactly. Pretty good. But I think even defensively is going to be a guy who's going to be good there as well. And you put him under the tutelage of Coach Tibbs and you give him time to develop. He might end up being a guy that ends up being like a starting 3 one day for this team. I truly believe it could happen. And so if you're ever going to bet on pedigree, why not do it when you've got 2 first-round picks? So my chaos pick here, a little bit of a reach, Justin Edwards out of Kentucky.
I really like that pick. I really like it. I still think Justin Edwards has a path.
Same.
I still think he has a path. All right. The Knicks are still on the clock.
Yeah.
And I am picking the second pick for the Knicks. They took a young guy, a guy that they can mold.
Yeah.
Guy that they can take their time with. Who has pedigree but was a little raw. And now, with their next pick, I'm going to take a guy who was unbelievably productive for multiple years, is one of the best rebounding wings in the draft, was a 20-point per game scorer, averaged 5 assists a game, great basketball mind, huge wingspan, and would thrive, I think, with the kind of coaching that Tom Thibodeau provides. I'm going to go with Dylan Jones to the Knicks set.
Oh. Okay.
I think he could play up. I think you can give him the ball and let him initiate some offense. I think his shot is going to come around. 85% plus from the free throw line. Killer in the mid-range. Super, super brilliant basketball player.
Yeah.
Awesome story. Underdog. Guy who can learn from some of the Knicks on the roster already. Perhaps another freak rebounding guard. I think his defense is going to improve now that he doesn't have to be the cog of the offense. Dylan Jones at 25 to the Knicks.
I love the chaos.
And
I think. Oh, sorry, Corey.
And it's chaotic. Certainly chaotic.
The comments.
Coach Sire says 2 terrible picks for the Knicks, so I feel like we've done our job.
Yeah. I love it, Coach. We love you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
It's just we're just trying to have fun here. Okay, I'm ready to go back to the Wiz because nobody beats the Wiz.
Awesome reference.
We're aging ourselves here, Corey.
No, we are middle-aged white guys. You know you're listening and you laughed at that.
Here we go. Okay, I'm ready, Corey. Here we go. Wizards. Who did we take with the first Wizards pick? Shepherd, right? We went Shepherd.
Reed Shepherd. You took Reed Shepherd at pick 2.
Okay. So this is where I'm thinking. I'm thinking Reed Shepherd's a safe ass pick. That's like, hey, And when I say safe, it's not like, oh, we know who he is already or type of thing. It's just we know he's going to be good. Now, of course, there's still a ceiling to him where he might become even better. I've comped him to Mark Price. Mark Price had a very, very good NBA career. Just want to say that. Okay. So I'm not saying that Reed Shepherd, what he is today, is just what he's going to be for the rest of his career. I think there's a great ceiling with him, but it's safer just because I think he's so damn good. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. Just a little bit. It's not a crazy risk because this guy is super duper talented, right? A guy who wasn't in the greatest situation this season, playing in a weird team, weird situation, blah, blah, blah. He's got some real question marks defensively, but considering the size, athleticism, shooting ability, even with some flashes of passing, give me Tyler Smith of the G League.
Wow.
Now, my thing with Tyler Smith is, look, I get it, defensive stuff, but you got Bilal Coulibaly, you got Denny Avdia, you've got Reed Shepherd, even right as a defensive guy. Give Tyler Smith some time. I think he's got the length and the size and the tools, athleticism to one day become a decent defender. It's just he's not there yet, right? He's still defensively early on in his development, but the offensive flashes with him are worth taking a shot at, right? And of course, like you mentioned, Kyle Kuzma's a great player. We don't know if he's going to be around. He might not even be on this team opening day, right? So my thing is Tyler Smith is the type of shot that you take after you've gotten a guy like Reed Shepherd. And it might be a little bit chaotic because it might be a little bit of a reach for people. But I do think he's that enticing of an offensive player that you have to give him a look right now.
I love it. Tyler Smith can shoot. He can jump. He can weak side shot block. And that's a good swing at this part of the draft, man.
Yeah.
Spoke to him, watched film with him. Check that out. No Ceilings NBA YouTube feed. All right, the Timberwolves are on the clock at 27. This has been a team that has not been afraid to take guys who have fallen down the board in the past. They like betting on pedigree late in the draft. And I think the slide has to fall, or the slide has to stop. Because I actually still like him. So I'm going to take Jacoby Walter here.
Yeah.
And Jacoby Walter and Leonard Miller can form the best young duo in the G League next year. I heard Iowa's nice this time of year. And they can grow. I think Jacoby is got a good enough frame that like he can play alongside Anthony Edwards down the line. I really believe in his shooting despite the numbers. He got to the free throw line a ton. I still think he's pretty good. He might not be a star. He might not have the tightest handle. You wish he was a couple inches taller, but Jacoby's good. He's a good young player. This is good value for Minnesota. And I think it's fairly chaotic that he'd fall to 27.
I love it. A guy that, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy, Corey, to think that he might go even a little bit higher. It could happen because of the pedigree stuff.
I think
because it's a crazy draft.
I think he can go higher. I think he goes higher.
So I'm cool with it. Love it.
All right. You're on the clock for the Denver Nuggets at 28. We've heard them connected to De'Ron Holmes. We've heard them connected to Tyler Smith. Both those guys are off the board. Where do they turn to now?
I'm going a different flavor. I want a different type of guy. A guy who is going to come off the bench, can go create a little bit for himself, shoot it a little bit outside, play make it a little bit. Just because we've learned that, at this point, we know who Michael Porter Jr. is. We know, I think we have a pretty good idea of what type of player Christian Brown's going to be. Obviously, they took guys like Strother last year. Who else do they have? They took Pickett last year. They have Peyton Watson, defensive weapon. I just want a guy who can come in and create a little bit. We're talking chaos here, right? Give me Jalen Tyson. I'm looking at Jalen Tyson as a guy that I think could be an interesting player, plays at a funky pace, kind of plays to his own speed, can handle the ball. You could see him running some really funky, fun pick and roll stuff with Jokic, just as an offensive weapon coming off the bench. I think he could be a lot of fun. So I'm going Jalen Tyson here.
I love it. Love me some Jalen Tyson. I would take him much earlier personally.
Yeah.
Very talented guy. Fits in, I think, with the off-ball, on-ball stuff. You did a great job breaking it down. Okay. So on the clock, this is going to be my last pick at pick 29 for the Utah Jazz. And this board, man, we're really getting into the chaotic picks. I am going to take Harrison Ingram. I picked 29.
Great
for the Utah Jazz.
Fucking home run.
This is a guy who had a lot of hype 2 years ago in the draft world. But he's like a 6'7" wing who's strong, who's gotten into unreal shape. He can pass the ball, needs to work on his efficiency, but he can play alongside. I think they're young guys. And I thought he was really, really good this year for North Carolina. I think he really, really improved. And, at this far down in the first round, I think he's an interesting swing to take. So I'm going to take Harrison Ingram here.
It's perfect.
All right. Last pick of the draft. Boston Celtics, the 2024 NBA champion Boston Celtics are on the clock. What direction are you going, Albert?
Okay. This has been really fun. I think we made a lot of really wild picks. The last one, my thing with him is that I love this situation. He'd be joining a winning organization, as much as I hate to say it. Just won the title. There would be absolutely zero pressure for him to do anything, I think, even in the first 2 years, but is a guy who also some pedigree, has some deep connections in the NBA. And I think is just a dynamite offensive player that just needs time. I'm going all the way down to Australia to grab AJ Johnson as my gut pick here. I'm going AJ Johnson because, number one, I think he deserves to go in the first round. As crazy as people might feel that might be, I think he deserves to be in the first round. I think the type of offensive talent that he has that is still untapped, I think is way, way, way too enticing to pass up here. Once again, the situation here with the Boston Celtics and them not needing an impact guy right away, but can afford to give him the time to develop. And as we've mentioned, close buddies with Jalen Green, right? A guy who is kind of verified in that way, right? Jalen Green believes in him. I don't know what that means for other people, but my biggest thing with AJ is I think the talent is just too enticing for you to not take a shot if you're a team like the Boston Celtics that doesn't need someone to walk in and contribute right away. So you give him time to work on his body. You give him time to continue to work on the outside jumper. But what he can do with the ball in his hands, he might, if everything goes right, he might be a part of the Killer Bees and joining them and being an offensive weapon for them. So I'm going AJ Johnson.
I love it. And the thing that impressed me the most, because he didn't make a ton of shots this year, I really thought his defensive activity was really impressive. If you go back and watch it, he was not perfect by any means, but he was really giving effort and he was pretty locked in, I thought. And, the shooting, he was getting such weird minutes, 2 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 9 minutes there, 4 minutes here. Like, it's hard to find a rhythm in that way. I thought he was pretty good at the combine, had an insane poster. So he's athletic. He can pass a little bit.
Yep.
Has some real shot making chops. He's just got to kind of slow it down a little bit. Just, maybe he's at 1.5 speed on a podcast right now. Maybe 1.2. Just get it to 1.2. You want to be faster than people listening at normal speed, but 1.2 is a good speed for him. I love it. So AJ Johnson to the defending champion Boston Celtics. Let's run through our first round here. Donovan Clingan went 1 to the Atlanta Hawks. Reed Shepherd went 2 to the Washington Wizards. Alex Sarr went 3 to the Houston Rockets. Nikola Topic went 4 to the Spurs. Zachary Richeche went 5 to the Pistons. Steph Castle went 6 to the Hornets. Ron Allen went 7 to the Portland Trailblazers. Modest Buzelis went 8 to the Spurs. Kel'el Ware went 9 to the Grizzlies. Dalton Connect went 10 to the Jazz. Tijan Salon went 11 to the Bulls. Zach Edey went 12 to the OKC Thunder. Cody Williams went 13 to the Sacramento Kings. Bub Carrington went 14 to the Blazers. Isaiah Collier went 15 to the Heat. Devin Carter went 16 to the Sixers. Rob Dillingham went 17 to the Lakers. Jared McCain went 18 to the Magic. Tristan Da Silva went 19 to the Raptors. Kyle Filipowski went 20 to the Cavaliers. Deron Holmes went 21 to the Pelicans. Ryan Dunn went 22 to the Suns. Baylor Shireman went 23 to the Bucks. Justin Edwards went 24 to the Knicks. Dylan Jones went 25 to the Knicks. Tyler Smith went 26 to the Wizards. Jacoby Walter went 27 to the Timberwolves. Jalen Tyson went 28 to the Nuggets. Harrison Ingram went 29 to the Jazz. AJ Johnson went 30 to the Boston Celtics. That was our chaos mock. So a lot of, potentially weird outcomes, some guys that maybe could have gone higher, lower, maybe they won't go in the first round at all. But I think the point of this exercise, the reason we wanted to do it when we're about a week before the draft is just because, we don't know how the draft is going to play out. And you can't look at consensus boards and think this is the way it's going to go on draft night because this is what we're reading about. We learn every year that isn't how the draft plays out. So maybe some picks will be accurate, maybe some won't. But I hope you all had fun and use it as a thought exercise. Maybe some different outcomes for different teams and not just seeing the same guys mocked to the same spots because maybe that team just doesn't like those guys. Maybe they have somebody way out of left field ranked ahead of them. And that's why we see slides happen every year. So I don't know. This is one of my favorite episodes to do, Albert. I don't think we did one last year because I think we again ran out of time, but the year before I thought it was really fun. So hopefully, this is something we can keep going forward because it's different. It's different.
Yeah. And Corey, with it being a chaos mock, there were some guys that didn't make the first round that a lot of people have going in the first round. Guys like Keyshawn George, Johnny Furphy, Kevin McCullough, Tyler Kolek, Yves Misi, right? A lot of guys that a lot of people have going mocked in the first round. But I think this is an important exercise just because it's funny. People will look at, this chaos mock and be like, oh, this is a joke. But it's funny because a lot of times something like this could be actually pretty close to what actually happens in real life where, just because all the mocks have a guy going in the first round doesn't mean it's always going to happen. So,
well, shout out to our guy, Mr. Ray. This was a dope episode. Always there supporting. Appreciate everybody watching live. You guys continue to blow us away with your support and the fact that you show up for all of our streams. Unbelievable. One more time for those who weren't here at the beginning of the show, we have just released our 2024 NBA draft guide at no ceilings. It is $12. It has 18,000 words, 60 full scattering report write-ups. There are advanced stats in this pretty little chart that I created, courtesy of our friends at Synergy. Pros, cons. We have our prospect chemistry for players that we think, maybe, players show signs of being in little bits of ways. So the whole crew worked so hard on this thing. And we've already been blown away by all of your support. So if you want to support us, this is the best way to do it right now. And other than that, make sure that you stay locked into NoCeilingsNBA.com. Subscribe there. That's free. You'll get content delivered to your inbox Monday through Friday, every single day. Very excited for the week ahead. Excited for the draft night stream. Both nights we'll be doing a stream. Super excited for that. If you are watching this live tomorrow night, I will be on the field of 68 mock draft with a sick group of guys. So more mock drafts. We have more mock drafts coming at No Ceilings, big boards, draft rankings, film sessions that we have banked. Very excited for what we got going forward. Thank you for rocking with us. You can follow him at Alberto Gim. You can follow me at Corey Tulaba. Until next time, y'all, we are out. Peace.
Peace.